anything you would like to discuss today, you're most welcome to suggest a topic. Yes, beloved.
You see, beloved, even at the level of physiology,
The very first sensory system to develop in the embryo is the system of hearing. Hearing is the first of the five senses to emerge and become operational in the birth of every human being. And that is because it is key and foundational in one's whole experience and everything that makes up the contents of that experience. All of our experiences are fundamentally heard. You listen to things in order to even have the experience of quote-unquote reality. Reality is an auditory event occurring in consciousness. Hearing is the original location of attention. Attention is embedded in hearing. Or to put it in its proper context, hearing is the first derived mode of attention. So you see, beloved, you can't even have experience without listening. And not necessarily listening to the gross objective noise of the universe, but it is listening to your commentary on it. If you listen closely, you will hear yourself always involved in an inner dialogue. A kind of inner conversation is constantly going on. What is ordinarily referred to as discursive thought and thinking is fundamentally a conversation that you are carrying on with yourself. It is an internal dialogue. And this internal dialogue is the foundation and the factor that determine what you experience. Acha, you see, beloved, even before you notice a thing visually, you comment on it. That's a good-looking brother. That's a good-looking sister. That's a nice car. The commentary is necessary to even give meaning to that which you see. The meaning of what you see, taste, touch, and feel is always supplied by this commentary, isn't it? This inner speech, then, that is heard, that is audible, both objectively and subjectively, is the foundation of ordinary and usual awareness. Your awareness mimics and takes the shape and form of that which you attend to via listening. It is because of the primary role that listening plays in the behavior of attention and therefore in the determination of the entire domain of your personal awareness that the mystics in the East has referred to this way that has been offered here as Surat Shabbat Yoga. Surat means listening. Surat is that aspect of attention embedded in the act of hearing. And there's much, much more can be said about it. Nevertheless, you begin to see that there's a direct correlation there between your capacity to listen and the quality of your attention. So yes, listening is something as rare as thinking, clearly. Most of us simply cannot listen. Because to listen, you must first stay and focus attention. How can you listen to that which you cannot focus your attention on? And of course, you cannot focus your attention to that which you do not listen to. So it seems that attending and knowing and all forms of cognition is concomitant with your capacity to simply listen. You are always listening, subjectively, to the eternal dialogue. Your waking condition is characterized by this uninterrupted inner dialogue, and you're listening to it. And unless you can liberate the attention that is trapped in this current of inner dialogue, then you cannot know anything about reality beyond the content and the extent of that dialogue. Are you following me, beloved? Your dialogue limits you to concepts. The moment you become involved in this inner commentary that is going on, in that same instance, you contract, shrink, become confined to the reality just associated with that dialogue. Acha, beloved, when we see this object here, then we give it a name, plant, and so forth and so on. And then immediately we begin to comment on it. That's a nice looking plant. That's a bad looking plant. Won't they water the goddamn thing? You see, so forth and so on. And as we move deeper and deeper and become more and more involved in the inter-commentary about the plant, we cease having the experience of the plant. And that is replaced with our commentary. What you do with a plant, you do with other human beings that you're in relationship with. What you do with the plant, you do across the board. You become trapped in listening to this thing that serves as a barrier between you and reality. The question becomes, how do you listen to the plant? That is what's interesting. How can you hear the plant and not your comments on the plant? Well, it's not through these ears, is it? And that becomes the business of meditation, sadhana, spiritual development, so forth and so on. The ability to hear beyond the limitations of the physical organ becomes a part of the kind of siddhi, as they call them, that occurs to a yogi. The yogi, because they function out of an amplified consciousness, are able to extend the range. In in which they are able to hear. So this is a little bit about it. The key is to, of course, be able to rise above your internal dialogue. If one is able to simply do that, while you may not hear plant, but at least you can hear what other people are talking to you about for a change. Because even in ordinary conversation, we cannot hear the other person because we're too busy, locked into, trapped into hearing only our comments. Endless commentary. And that has become the basis of much misunderstanding that we have between us and other people. They're talking to you, or you're talking to them. It works both ways, doesn't it? And you're thinking they understood you, they're thinking you understood them. In reality, neither of you understood each other at all, because you never heard each other. You were simply locked, trapped. In attending to this inner dialogue and this commentating. If one becomes capable of liberating one's attention and is able to go beyond that inner stream of thinking and dialogue, then you can hear what the other one says and have knowledge. Without that, it is always conjecture. You're always guessing. And most often, your guess is wrong. Meditation is designed to develop the capacity to really listen. By the disciplining of attention, the focusing of attention. Something else to say about it? I have called that process on other occasions your self-talk. And you are constantly involved in self-talk. And then your whole subjective reality becomes determined and shaped by the self-talk.
The enlightened person realizes that everything in their view, everything that they see in the material world, conditional reality, is a projection of their mind. Okay, is that true of the enlightened person? Everything that they see, they realize that they projected it. For someone who is unenlightened, what can they do to have more of an experience that what it is that they're seeing is of their own creation? What can we do to make that a more firm reality so that we can move forward?
You see,
To see like a Buddha, you have to do what Buddha did to become a Buddha. It is very simple. These seers who have attained this kind of view have also left for our prosperity and benefit a whole set of injunctives, practices, processes by which we contain. Principle among them being meditation. The path is the way that has been offered for any individual to attain those same lofty levels as the enlightened ones. So when you ask what can we do, you see, well, that is something that has been made available for thousands of years. And is available to everybody and every one of us. The question is, will you do it? They have given sadhana a path, a real process, injunctives. And say, if you want to have this experience, do that. But you see, beloved, we want to have the experience without doing the thing. And in that case, there's nothing that you can do to even generate any possible ideal of what the mystic experience is about. As long as one is not willing to do what it takes. So you must actually do what it takes, beloved. And what it takes now is the same thing that it took then. The very first thing you must do is enter deeply into the sadhana, the practices. And upon doing so, you will transcend the ego, which is the only thing that is limiting your view in the first place, isn't it? So I suppose, beloved, the closest and most comprehensive response to your question is you must transcend your ego. You must go beyond the limitation of your ego. And in doing so, you will gain the wider perspective. But short of that, nothing you can do. There's nothing you can add to your egoic self. You see, to expand this view. How can you do that? So you must really truly enter into the ordeal, the process, the practice, the sadhana, the yoga that produces Buddhas. And that's how it always been. And that information is available. It's not hard to get. I mean, it's everywhere. So many gurus, so many teachers, so many paths. I mean, books are full of all kinds of analysis, explanations, models for that process.
Meditation, you condition your mind in such a way that you're able to see reality differently. Because for enlightened people, we don't realize that what we're seeing in our experience, we're the cause of it. You know, we just really don't see that. So you say that, and of course I know this.
Yes.
But I guess for one who has not perfected meditation yet, I guess I was looking for a short answer. Not a short answer, but maybe a way of approaching a situation, for instance, an event that is perplexing, you're not able to sort it out. If you could get the view and maintain the understanding for someone who's unenlightened, they would be able to deal with the situation and be able to move on.
The only thing, beloved, that an unenlightened person can do is suffer, by definition. That's what it means to be
Enlightened. It means to be limited, trapped in your suffering. There is no solution to it. Period. It's as long as you think that there's something you can do while still maintaining your egoic posture, then you remain deceived. There is nothing that you can do in the posture of ego to relieve yourself of any of your suffering, confusion. Our beloved, the egoic condition is characterized by great doubt, great confusion. Isn't it? Have you noticed it? It is never clear about anything. And it cannot become clear about anything. It is never certain about anything. It cannot have the experience of certainty. It is always full of doubt, always full of confusion, always in a level of anxiety, fear, neurosis, so forth and so on. By definition. So the one thing that has to happen, the most that can happen in the egoic condition, is the realization that there is no possibility for me to be happy, complete, clear, certain in this condition that I'm in. And on the basis of such a revelation, lose all sympathy with clinging to it and be prepared to enter into that process by which you may be liberated. That's the most that you can do as an ego, is to surrender, submit, to accept your condition. It will not get better, has not gotten better, in spite of all of the things that you and I and everybody else in here has done to make it better. The doubt, the confusion, the suffering, the misery, the uncertainty, the frustration remains, doesn't it? And that is what must be seen. This precisely is what must be seen. That all of your effort as an ego are futile. And there is nothing you can do as ego to ameliorate your condition. Your condition is there because you are an ego. Are you following me? Ego is the actual cause of the confusion. Without removing it, what can you do to the confusion? Confusion is a byproduct of ego. It arises out of it. It is related to it. The only solution, beloved, becomes that process by which you may be liberated and transcended of this ego. And we have talked much about that, haven't we? But at some point, you see, we must become absolutely hopeless about our ego project and strategies. There is nothing you can do as ego, no strategy you can resort to that is going to deliver what you want, which is a kind of knowledge and certitude. That's not possible for an ego. Yes, beloved?
It's just that, for us to look to see that there is no other
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah. To look, to see, to consider it, to the point of becoming hopeless about it. Until you become hopeless about your ego project, then there's really no way to respond to these great mistakes. Because you still
Have some hope that if you just did this, if I can just do that, if I can just read this book, hear that talk, you see, move to that part of town, manipulate this circumstance in my life, then voila, there it is, a life of fulfillment, a life free of anxiety, fear, confusion, doubt. And as long as you fall for that, then you will remain committed to your ego project. It is only when the ego project fails, and the failure is so complete that there's no way that you can generate any hope about it. Only in that moment now are you open and available to the path. That's the whole purpose of the considerations. Now, you will discover that eventually, even if you don't enter into the considerations, won't you? Because over the course of your life, you will simply continually fail in achieving the kind of outcome you have hoped for on the basis of becoming the kind of person that you are. Remember, beloved, we talked already in great detail about the fact that all of us have constructed a kind of way of being in the world for the purpose of achieving a sense of worth and value and recognition, a way of being in the world where we are free of anxiety, not burdened with doubt, where we have a sense of security and so forth and so on. We've all have fashioned a way of being in order to accomplish those very things. A life that is fulfilling, because you want to be able to make good decisions and resolve all these things, because you want to live a very fulfilling life, you see. I have called that the Ego Project, right? And I have said already that that project always fails. Even when you succeed, you fail. Because the outcome is never what you hope for. You are never happy enough. No matter what you do, you are never truly happy enough. You think getting married or getting a wife or starting a business or taking a vacation or making some money, you think if I can just get all those things, I'll obtain it. In fact, that's why you don't really take advantage of the path and the gurus, because you figure, I really don't need this Buddha. I really don't need any sadhana. I got my own sadhana. I just got to work my plan. And if I can pull it off, I'm going to attain the same kind of satisfaction and fulfillment in life as the Buddha. Who needs the Buddha? Let me just stay focused and work real, real hard and implement my ego strategy. And if it works, and I know it's got to work, because I put a lot of energy into it, prayed a lot to God about it. God is on my side. Prayed over it. And then the project fails. And you're only able to hold these hopes and ambition because you are fundamentally starting your ego project from the point of failure in the first place. You are already a failure. You're starting out of a posture of failure. That's why you got all these strategies. Right? You're trying to make some money because you're broke. You understand me? You're trying to start a business because you ain't got no business. You're trying to be something because you are nothing. You're starting from a deficit posture in the first place. That's why you're so susceptible and vulnerable to hope in the first place. You're hoping the man to do the job because you don't have no man. Or that the woman, the wife that you found, will do the job because you don't have no wife. You understand? You are starting from a posture of deficit. Zero ground is where you at. And the more ambitions and the more strategy you got, it's just a sign of how impoverished you really are at this moment. Are you following me? And even if you are able to accomplish all those things that you have envisioned, if accomplished, will produce fulfillment for you as a human being, you will still fail to be fulfilled. You will discover it then. That's why I say that even if you succeed, you will fail. Now, people who have got all of that stuff, they already know the outcome. It's empty. But you think they're joking with you. Oh, they can't be telling the truth. You know what I mean? I don't know why this millionaire blew his brains out. He must be crazy. You know, he was probably more sane than you. He knows something you don't know about having $1 million. saw. You never had $1 million. What do you know about it? Nothing. In fact, that's why most people don't have any money. They can't handle the pressure of having money. Simple. It's very simple. Having money is a whole different experience. Now you got to worry about, do people really like me, or they just want my money? That's how you like to live with that hanging over your head. You're always full of doubt. The more money you got, the more doubtful you become, particularly in the area of your relationships. You start down, damn, do my kids even really love me, or are they just waiting for me to pop off and get this in here? I mean, you become overwhelmed with doubt. Is they really my friend, or they just trying to hang out so I write them a check? I mean, you become full of doubt. So even when you succeed, you fail. So those are the possibilities you see. Fail, succeed and fail, but do sanyama and consider it. Develop the wisdom to see that that is the case. And upon seeing that, lose all sympathy with your ego project and strategies. And then liberate that energy, time, and apply yourself in a way that will outcome in real happiness, real fulfillment. No fooling, no kidding, the real deal. That's what the path is about. And you simply cannot make right use of the path until you have undergone one of those processes. And the trouble with the first strategy is that you may exhaust your whole life in living. Now you're 70 years old, then finally you discover none of this shit worked. But you got 2 or 3 good years left. What kind of sadhana are you going to do? You're old. The body's tore up. You have 1 foot in the grave. You do not have the energy, the stamina to handle the ordeal that is spiritual practice anymore. You got time now, yes, because nobody else wants to be bothered with you. You know how we do old people in our culture. We don't want to be bothered with them. Or do we put them down yourself in hospice? Right? We got them packed away in there like sardine cans, sitting in rooms, in their feces. When you become old, you're going to have a lot of time because you're useless. Nobody needs you now. And you discover your failure. Then, of course, you want to turn to God, but what can you do? You have become feeble. You have squandered all your youth, all your energy in bullshit. Lost in your ego project. Because you did not examine it. That's why Maharaji, you see, used to always say you must examine your life. See. Really see. So this condition is always fraught with all kinds of problems, beloved. The ego is characterized by doubt, and it is constantly looking for some way to be relieved of the tension and the stress of their doubt. And this is most clearly demonstrated in our relationship with each other. In our relationship with each other, intimate relationships especially, there's always that element of doubt. Do the other one loves me? Always that undercurrent of doubt. And the moment the other behaves in any way that confirms it, your "you don't love me" reflex kicks in. All right? And then you go into that whole ritual that is associated with the feeling of being unloved. It is profound. It is profound. And that's all that we're doing. You're simply always acting out of the "you don't love me," the world don't love me, and the "nobody loves me" reflex and impulse. And you have created all kinds of rituals that is associated with that. From whining and moaning to sledging your wrist. part of your ritual and your response to the egoic experience of you don't love me. Nobody cares about me. It is a tragic affair, isn't it? Yes, beloved.
I'm still in the workshop.
You still in the workshop, beloved?
Yes.
Did you rascal have a good time in the workshop?
The shadow material, the stuff that I repressed about myself.
Yes, beloved.
And my question is, in doing this on Yama's, doing this process is, I know some of it is gonna come out, but is some of it so subtle till, I guess I'm asking, when will I see this all? I mean, is it all gonna come out, or is it just a process just like everything else? And the second part to that question is, you mentioned yesterday, once all that stuff comes up, there's the dark night of the soul.
Yes.
And you mentioned what happens in that process, and there's a mastery to see through that process. And I guess my question is, how does the master help you go through that?
The master helps you first and foremost by forewarning you in the first place, by letting you know that this is going to happen. That in itself reduces takes some of this thing out of it. There's still going to be some reactivity, of course, but it's less. You can be a little prepared for it, right? The master tells us that this is bound to occur in the process. So
Get prepared, and here's some things you can do to start preparing yourself for the reemergence of all of those things about yourself. All of the things that was inconsistent with the way you decided to be in order to gain the recognition of others and to increase your value in the world. All of that stuff you hid away from others' view. When that stuff starts reemerging, the master is warning you about it, you see. And he says, don't fight with it. Don't split it off. Accept that as being true about you. Accept the truth about yourself. That's the first thing. You see. Because until you can accept the truth about yourself, you can't move another further in this truth business. How would you do that? All of it is mind-boggling, not just some. Sure, because what happens is the parts of yourself that you split off and hid away so that you'll be better capable of perpetrating your fraud. I've called it your ego racket. And you run a racket on other people. You got this version of yourself that you put out there, your best version. You see? And it's got all the accessories and trinkets and the lights and the bells, and its whole function is to attract others, to increase your value in the eyes of others, so that you can establish a being in this world. And so you can overcome the fundamental anxiety and sense of being nothing and nobody, right? So you put your somebody out there, right? And keep your nobody over here, right? And you go on living like that, a real kind of inauthentic life, a facade, false, pseudo, bullshit, fakery, a con artist. That is all, right? And your outcome in your life will be appropriate. Misery, failure, and all of that. The spiritual process is a process that starts establishing the truth. And the first truth that it establishes is not the truths of impermanence, the noble truths, and so forth and so on. The first truth and the primary truth that the guru has to establish is the truth about you. That's the noble truth that you need to be interested in. Why are you worrying about Buddha's noble truths? What about your noble truth? And you can't know your noble truth without reintegrating that you have hidden away from the sight of others and even of yourself. And you have to be mature as a self to reintegrate that. You have to be strong. Now, the reality, beloved, is most people are too weak to handle the truth about themselves. They're not strong enough for that yet. Satsang and all these other things, even therapy, functions to help strengthen the individual to handle that. But sometimes, beloved, whether the person's strong enough or not, sometimes some of this stuff manages to invade into the domain of your ego awareness. Are you all following me here? Hmm? It's able to penetrate it. So something out of your past, some biographical event, reemerges in memory when you were raped when you were 3 years old. You understand? And that whole experience. In spite of your best effort over the years to repress it, somehow it burst into awareness. And now the ego is wounded. It struggles now because you were raped and sexually abused and you enjoyed it. And you've been trying to repress that fact out of your mind as best you could so that you could continue to feel a victim. It gets profound. So sometimes biographical events reemerge full of memories and feelings associated with those memories, unrequested by you. Shakes you. Now the mystics are saying, we're going to open up the whole floodgate. And we're letting it all back in the house. Because this is the truth that you got to deal with. This is what is the truth you must first discover. You're trying to discover some kind of esoteric truth, some kind of profound truth, the truth of the universe, the cosmos, and you way out. The mystics are right here. And they're about first discover the truth about yourself. If you can't handle that kind of truth, how will you handle truth about God? Who are you kidding? Yes,
Is it possible for the exact opposite to happen? Because I've noticed that since I've been on the path, I have changed a lot of things that have previously been very important to me, or changed a lot of my value system. And I guess that instead of having things really, really get next to me or bother me, I'm trying to look at them and not get excited about them. But is it possible that instead of actually doing that, I'm trying not to have the perception that I just don't give a damn about certain things
I understand.
come up too. So now instead of maybe having people perceive me as being this wonderful, kind, loving person, am I now trying to put forth this person who doesn't get excited about anything or doesn't give a damn about something, when actually the feelings are there, but...
I understand what you're saying. You want to know, are you reinventing?
Right.
Or is it real?
Right.
And that's the purpose of the
not giving a damn and
that's-
actually having
that's-
feelings, but but actually transcending them.
I understand exactly what you're saying, beloved. And of course, that takes us into a
much larger discussion, and hopefully we will have that at some point in this upcoming series when we start looking into the psychiatry of sadhana and meditation. We will begin to explore just that matter. And I've also asked, beloved, for Siddhanta and Sattara to offer a follow-up workshop to that one that will begin now to focus in on the psychology and the subjective experience of the reintegration of shadow back into sense of self. And that will be addressed at that point in detail. Let me preface all of that by saying this, beloved. The shadow part does not always consist of negative things. It also consists of some very positive things, too, that you have split off. Because, again, it depends on how you decided to be in the world that pertained to you at that time in order to achieve recognition and establish your sense of worth and to enhance your value to others. Now, some people, for instance, in order to accomplish those goals, might have decided to be away in the world where they hide certain abilities, qualities. Say, for instance, if what was my decision involved me playing stupid, dumb, if actually coming up with a dumb persona, you know, a lot of y'all came up with the dumb persona solution, right? Play dumb. I'm not that bright, you see? Because then I'm no, you know, then people don't mind being around me because I'm no threat. You know, that works. It enhances my value because Bhagwan is stupid. So he's harmless. Let's let him be with us, you see, and so forth and so on. Well, actually, Bhagwan may be brilliant. But what am I going to do with that now? I'm going to what? All right. I'm going to cut it off. And that, too, gets reintegrated when you are made into a whole self again. And then in that moment, now it may cause the way you have been some problem because you have become accustomed to just always acting stupid. And now your intelligence is back on the scene. And it's putting an end to your always acting stupid routine. And that becomes a threat to you because, boy, if I show these people how smart I am, you know what I mean? They may not let me hang with them no more. Now ego is in dilemma. It works many, many kinds of ways. The point is, you see, that the biographical parts of the shadow are both positive and negative, good and bad, to use some way to distinguish between the contents of the shadow. It includes some very profound things about you. In fact, some of the best of who you are has been repressed. How's that for an insight? Some of the very best of you is laying there in the shadow. So you become a whole self, functional. Now the shadow is just a part of the unconscious. Your shadow is just the personal part of the unconscious sphere of events, feelings, instincts that you have not admitted into your personal domain of awareness, your ego domain of awareness. Are you all following me? Yeah. I know this stuff can become complex at times. I apologize. But it is the kind of stuff you need to know. Beyond the personal unconscious that is made up of the biographical roots of your life that has been split off, suppressed, repressed, there's even a larger one. And that is the collective unconsciousness, as Jung called it. That contains what the whole race has split off. You know, black people have split off a lot of stuff just to survive as black people, haven't we? That goes beyond just your personal biographical stuff, right? That also lurks back there. And that also gets reintegrated. So forth and so on. And this is what makes the spiritual path the ordeal that it is. It is not a piece of cake. It is not a party at your auntie's house. It lets back in the house all of this stuff, and if you're not solid, you're not strong, you will break down. You will lose your mind. You'll lose your whole balance. You'll become destabilized. Because on the path, you must pass through the territory that is where all insane people reside. You must go through their land to get to where you're going. And this is how it is. This is how it is. And you can't make it through there if you're not together. You have to be strong. No fooling, no kidding. Otherwise, you will not survive. The moment that stuff rushes back in, it's debatable whether you all will even survive the reintegration of your biographical shadow. That's questionable at this point, because you all are so caught up in your ego mythology and your facade and this inauthentic, false, pseudo, phony way of being that you have become committed to and remain committed to. At this moment, you are still committed to it. Don't think sitting there listening to me deceives me. Sitting where you are at in this very moment, you are still committed to the perpetuation and the maintenance and the ongoing existence of this inauthentic person that you decided to be in order to meet your egoic needs and fulfill your egoic ambitions. I am aware of it, and I'm simply saying you might as well become aware of it. That way we can get past it all. But we can't go too far. Because you will split off from our conversation anything that threatens that. I'm not thinking that you're taking in every word I'm saying. You are adding into this stuff right away. And you are hacking off whole section that, well, that don't apply to me. Yeah, but well, that's true about that son of a bitch. I know that. Oh, I know that's true about so-and-so over there. Not me. You are hacking as I speak. And you are pressing out anything that is a threat to your continual preoccupation with your ego project. You repress it. Of course, at the time of death, that is what happened. The ego loses its ability to repress. And that's what comes in during life in you. And that is what wipes you out in the dying stages of life. The grief, the remorse, the sorrow, all of that it is a horrible thing. Because you no longer have the ability to repress it out of awareness no more. The ego enters into dissolution in the dying stage of life. And then entering into that dissolution, all of its defensive systems for repressing out of its awareness the whole truth about itself reemerges. And laying there on your deathbed, you'll see you have been nothing but a straight-up asshole your whole life. You could have seen that, though, when you were 35 and done something about it. Pitiful. Pitiful. I mean, a pitiful person, a useless person, a parasite, a leech, non-contributory. You get to see that on your deathbed. A fool, a straight-up fool. You get to see that, but you can't do nothing about it. The great benefit you see, beloved, in the path is that we get to discover that about ourselves now. Is it going to hurt? It's going to kill you. That's why we call it dying while living. That's the only difference. Dying while you're living or dying in the hospital. But the psychological and emotional impact of the information is going to be the same. That's not going to change. truth in this discovery about yourself is not a pleasant affair. Are you hearing me? That's not pleasant. And you're not going to like it at all. Not going to be fun. We'll shake you up. It is your greatest threat. Right now, that's the greatest threat that you have right now. You're threatening, you're running, and you ducking, you hiding because you're scared to death somebody really going to find you out. Terrifies you. In fact, you divorce, separate from those people who gets too close and get suspicious. The guru will simply find you out. And help you find yourself out. So, yes, beloved.
As you were talking about how even right now, sitting here, we edit out, how I edit out what you say almost as soon as it comes out of your mouth. It put me in mind of something I was speaking to someone earlier, and they were telling me that in spite of what you said when you were sitting here about how we feel about the path and the anger we have at the path and the anger at the guru, in spite of that, what you said, in spite of the workshop, that today, right now, there are still people in our Sangha who still say that they don't have any anger at the path and any anger at the guru. They still are sticking with it, and they're saying that if there's anger, then there must be something wrong with the person. But in hearing that, and hearing what you just said right then, what came up for me was this. That's me doing the same thing to everything that I hear. Anything that comes out of your mouth that I don't want to hear, the first thing I want to do is say, well, he's talking about somebody else. And I understand now, well, when you were sitting there, they were saying, well, they're not talking about me. Everybody else probably got anger at the path and the guru, but they're not talking about me. And that's what the same thing that I do.
And outside, beloved, perhaps they don't.
Maybe they're telling you the truth. Have you ever thought of that?
Yeah.
You may find it hard to believe because you have anger at the guru.
Right.
And you can't conceive of nobody else not having it.
Right.
That's a possibility. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and take a wait-and-see posture. That's the best way to go about it. You know, always give the other the benefit of the doubt. And the truth will be revealed one way or the other in the course of time, won't it? So it's all right. But I understand and appreciate your point, beloved, and your confession. And yet this is the ordeal. This is the task. And folks, I really want you to understand this. I mean, this is nuts and bolts stuff here, all right? I mean, we could talk a lot more about the metaphysics of it all, and I've talked lots about metaphysical stuff. But these past few occasions, I have been in the mood to stay right down here on earth here, all right? And let's deal with first thing first here, right? And I've said over and over again, first you got to get straight. You got to really get straight. You got to get straight. At some point in your life, you got to get straight. And you got to abandon this ego project and this fraud you've been perpetrating. You got to drop this ego racket. You got to let that stuff die. And I know you won't do it unless you really see it. So I can't mock you out of it. I have to help you to see it. I want you to see how the way that you have been and are continuing to be in this world has failed. You are not fulfilled. You are not happy enough. In fact, you are all the opposite. You see? You are simply a charlatan. You are hiding behind rhetoric and smiles. But on the other side of that, you are in trouble. And see, please see, the project is not going to work. It has not worked, and it's not going to work. Why spend the rest of your life and all of your energy on a project that has already proven to be a failure? What is the point? You're so desperate trying to get other people praise and recognition and trying to impress people. Not realizing that people not even impressed by you and haven't been for a long time. And you still involved in that kind of infantile adolescent game of responding to peer pressure. You 50 years old. Your days of trying to be cool for the sake of impressing people should be over with. You got grandkids, and you still trying to be cool. I can understand if you were in high school, but you're not. You're not. Your project failed. It failed in high school. And you're still involved in it. You see? Let it go. Let it go. See it and let it go. And let it go. It's not going to work. Has not worked. Cannot work. And give that energy and time to that which will work. Don't be a fool. Don't be a fool. I'm reminded of a friend of mine that I grew up with. And was not an intimate growing up with. I mean, he wasn't like around from the way, but I saw him from time to time, and we, as young men, paced through life, and we both wind up in the insurance business. And those of you who know me know that I was in the insurance business in another lifetime. So I have my horror stories too. You have to have bad coming to be an insurance man. Thank God I paid that off. But I was a real insurance man. You know what I mean? In the sense that, you know, I had agency, I had all states, and I had all these things, and I was licensed in securities and series and all of that. You know, I mean, like Dio saw, we were really financial people. We had credentials. But my buddy was one of, you know, like there's jackleg preachers. He was a jackleg insurance man. You know, he had a couple industrial companies that he sold for, and I doubt if he was licensed at that. And he was struggling, you know what I mean? Well, he used to show up at all of the insurance people events, you know what I mean? The Millionaires Club, you know, Life Millionaires, they have all these things. And he was a character, a mockery, you see? And he would come in this crumpled, wrinkled suit while everybody else standing around in Armani's, you know what I mean? Dressed to the bone. And, I mean, he would be there faking it. It was sick. And he's walking around like he's a real insurance man. You know, I got my own, I'm an insurance man, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. What kind of entrepreneur are you? You're not an entrepreneur. You fantasizing about being an entrepreneur. You ain't got no money, and you ain't running nothing. Get you a job. You know, now here's $10, but get your ass a job. The brother couldn't get a job. Years later, I saw him down on Wacker Drive, pushing a cart. His commitment to his persona of being a businessman, an entrepreneur, above working a job, was so profound, trapped him so deeply, that rather than let it go, he let it take him all the way down to being under Wacker Drive and psychotic, talking to himself. That's what your ego and the commitment to it will do to you. Try to understand me here. give up the project, it will fail. It is already failing, and it will continue to fail. And even if you succeed, it will fail. I also have a couple of friends that had a different story. You don't mind me sharing real? I could quote scriptures, or I can quote from my life and living. Life and living. And I have a couple of friends that were very successful, made a lot of money. So I've seen both sides. Of course, Bilal knows them, and Raja Veera, and Brahmaji, and Patraji, and Sadaji, and so forth, but I won't call their names. But they made about $15, $20 million up, bootstrapped it up. Kiba knows them. One of them still in jail. Lost it all. I will be a rich, powerful, influential person. You know, he succeeded and failed and is in jail. Second time in jail, incidentally. Think he's fulfilled up there? The project fails, always. You can't patch it up. You can't fix it up, Janamaji. It failed, totally, always. And this is what you need to see about it. Yes, beloved.
That you made, summed it up, that the truth will come out. See, this project is just a series of falsehoods that you have created about yourself. All right? So that even when you succeed, it still is a falsehood.
That you just managed to
That
cover
you
up.
just managed to cover up temporarily. But as you said, the truth will always come out.
Absolutely. The shadow will engulf you. Always. And it's coming.
And it either will get you now or it'll get you on the way out. But it's going to get you. And all that comes tumbling down, especially when you enter into the dying stage of life, when death starts happening to you. All of it is coming unraveled. Now, our advantage, you see, beloved, is let's get it unraveled now. We still got some time, you see, right? And keep moving. Achaso Mahadasi, once you have integrated the shadow in, now the unconscious stuff got to come back in and so forth, right? And all of that involves a great ordeal, a great stoke. The body-mind has to be prepared. It has to be purged. It has to be purified. It has to be made very strong and fitting before the higher force that is God descends into it fully. God is in here, but only a little bit of him, because you can't handle him. Any more God than this little bit of God, and your body mind will blow up. It can't handle the freight. You see?
I was under the impression that the shadows
It didn't
was
throw
just
for you a
all the,
loop.
you went way yesterday.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes, beloved, even the good stuff. For instance, let's say that you don't have any confidence in yourself, all right? Because you have been made to feel no confidence in yourself. You were parented in a way,
Criticized as a child, so forth and so on. Always told what everything you did, wrong, 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 wrong. That has eroded your confidence, right? But you're really good at art. You're a natural artist. You draw alone in your bedroom, and then you tear it up and you hide it. Because you can't believe you can do anything good. Because your mom and dad have told you that. You have become convicted that you can't do nothing good. Right? So you will repress that. And you will avoid doing anything good so that you can remain consistent with your parents' expectations. They're expecting you not to do nothing good. You got to stay consistent. Because what if you mess around and did something good? Now they may totally reject you and throw you out the house. I got to keep, you know what I mean? On course. Right? So there's all kinds of dynamics going on here. Too many, too complex to speak in a general sense about it. One almost has to focus in on and go individual by individual because it's biographical, you see? But it's there. And that is the first work that has to be done. I tell you, see in Vipassana, one of the Buddhist forms of meditation, which is different from the meditation we do in the house, but it is meditation nevertheless, because it gets the job done. It just starts from a different part of the process, that's all. Vipassana starts on this side and works this way. The kind of search of yoga we do start here, but works to the same place. They both come approaching the same revelations. The process is different. But in Vipassana, for instance, you see, one simply observes the contents in mind. They don't judge them. As you begin to observe closely and with great focused attention, you start seeing deep into your mind, beyond the surface thoughts. If you don't get distracted and caught up in the surface thoughts, and you see, if you stay focused, right, you start seeing behind the surface thoughts running in the mind, and you start seeing down into the structures, the walls, right, the repressing mechanism, the actual mechanism in your ego system that automatically is repressing stuff out. You start seeing the process. You start seeing stuff hitting that kundal buffer, not making it through. At first you're startled. You know, you see a little stuff getting through, but I saw a whole bunch of stuff coming up. Only two things got it. It's very interesting, you know. It's pretty soon as you pass through that, now you enter and you can see all of this stuff here. You see? That is true about you. You know what I mean? And as long as you stay detached, and Vipassana requires that you remain detached. You are just to witness, observe. You're not to have an emotional response to it. You're not to get caught up in the drama of it all. You're not to get carried away with it, just watching. You start seeing all of these things that is true about you. In Sudapchab Yoga, because we concentrate first, right? We take the tension off all of that stuff, right? Get focused, right? Totally focused, totally collected. Get reorientated, cleared. And then when we in meditation, and it all comes back up, we're watching it as it all comes back. Just to reverse, but you're seeing the same thing. Are you following me, beloved? And you will be amazed at what you put in your basement. You will be amazed. You will be amazed. But that's what you have to get out. And that is always a traumatic experience. The point I'm making, beloved, is that I'm trying to convince you that your project is not worth the time and energy that you're putting into it. That's basically what I'm saying. All right? Now, you will have an ego. Of course you will have an ego. You will still function. Of course you will. In fact, you'll function much better because you will not be taking your posture serious no more. That's the end of that. You see? And you won't be so pathologically obsessed with perpetuating this false image of yourself. That's gone, and that's what samadhi is talking about. You see? You are no longer obsessed with the perpetuation. It's fine. You understand? You see? But it ain't necessary no more for you to buy into my myth that I'm presenting to you. There's no anxiety about it. A kind of indifference, isn't it? I simply call it detachment. Indifference too cold, you know, but you're detached. You're no longer driven by other people's recognition, praise. Now remember, there's those kinds of ego formation that runs off the opposite. They don't want nobody to praise them. They want to be perceived as a nonconformist, right? They like it when people don't like them. You see, it's a kind of pathological thing. You see, just the reverse. Yes, beloved.
There are children who become convicted that they are criminals. That's right. And they turn into criminals. And those are juvenile delinquents. But the truth is that they have actually bought into this concept of themselves. And it's a frightening thing to see it. And then it's just the beginning of what will happen to them. You know, they've actually bought into it. You have to work through that to get them to see that there's something worth and value in them.
Criminal, being a criminal, that is their project.
And then they put a lot of energy in being good at it.
They dress like it, right? They got the lingo. Some of these kids got a 200 IQ. They have to really struggle to talk like that. You know what I mean? When you see it in the wigger phenomena that you see in the suburbs, some of my personal clients are
Wiggers, we call them. These are the teenagers up in North. I got some clients up in Northbrook with NECA. These are obviously Europeans and their sons and so forth. And, you know, they'll come into the office, you know, and they got the hat cocked, they got the bags on, and they talking down. When the first guy, when I heard him out in the line, I thought, I said, this is a brother out here. I was shocked. You see, they know how to do that. Going to jail reinforces it. Right, right? So they got to go to jail. They got to get them medals. There you go. Now, we're doing the same thing on our project. You see? Let me get a Mercedes, you know what I mean? Or let me do something. I mean, adding to it constantly. It's all the same thing. And like them, they find out eventually that it didn't work. You see? And when we see them down in Stateville, locked down, right? They're crying like little girls. I mean, really, that's what you do. Like little girls. Being a thug did not work. And they get to find that out on death row. Right. And you get to find out that your project don't work on your death row, too. So, yes, beloved? Last question? Yes, beloved?
Get to the point of focus where you actually see your true self emerging and being closed by your shadow mechanism, and then you let it go and recognize it for what it is. That energy, I mean, it's like a freeing up. It makes you free. You know.
for the first time.
Yeah.
You free. Because the ego project takes all of your energy. And you don't have enough energy for nothing else. I mean, it consumes you. It takes everything of
Man and woman to maintain their ego project. It drains. And yes, beloved, there's that material, just the biographical parts of the unconscious that gets reintegrated back into the domain of egoic awareness. Just that process is fraught with great trepidation and struggle for the ego. You will first feel disillusioned, right? Despair, depression, anger, dread. All of those are the signs of the reemergence. Self-pity. You know what I mean? Cynical. You know, all of those characterizes the process. You know, it's all coming back in, right? And it's very difficult. In that moment, some people put guns to their head. I mean, it's very hard to accept the truth about yourself. That's not easy stuff. I mean, we laugh about it, we make jokes about it here because it helps us deal with it a little bit better, right? But you do understand, you know, while we laughing, you know, we're still painting. This stuff hurts. Yeah. Sadhana hurts. Self-realization hurts. It actually hurts. It hurts at the level of the body. It hurts. It really hurts. You see? And without a sangat, without someone to hold on to you, it's like, Acha, you can imagine if you caught a fire, you would start running, won't you? That's what everybody do who catch a fire. They start running, and that just makes the fire what? Right. But that's the natural response to being on fire. And if there's nobody there to grab you and throw a blanket on you, you're going to burn up in the process, aren't you? Have any of you been on fire? I've been on fire. I caught a fire trying to cook a hot dog. That's why I'm a vegetarian today. Trying to cook a hot dog with a raggedy old shirt on, leaning over fire. You know how them stoves in the ghetto is? They don't have no grids on it, just flames. You can't even adjust it. You got one height, high. And I reached over there and that fire hit and I started. So I still have my scars today. But you understand, when the shadow is de-repressed and allowed to re-enter into the domain of your awareness, it's like fire. It's burning up because it brings your ego project to a halt. The ego project and the ego racket, in order to succeed, depends on that remaining repressed. And once you bring it up, and once it becomes a part of who you are, integrated. Now, what happens is this, at the very end of the process, and then Bhagwan Ra will give you the last comment. At the very end of the process, after the delusion, after the depression, after the despair, after the anger, and all of that has happened to you, right? At the end of the process, you accept being nothing. Your days of trying to be somebody, it's all over with. You accept being nothing. You see, the only way to overcome the anxiety of nothingness that fuels and drives the ego project in the first place, as we talked about it yesterday. For those of you who wasn't able to attend the workshop yesterday, I don't know, did your video come out at all? Then you all kill Gurumurti, okay? Kill him. No audio. Flip it on the wall. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. But that's all right. We have you here. So all of you who were there, guess what kind of savor you get to do now? Is to make yourself available for those who weren't there. You see. But we talked about how this anxiety of nothingness is the mechanism that underlies and initiates the ego project in the first place, right? Because you're trying to overcome this anxiety about being nothing and no one. That's the project, right? When you were 14 years old, you got tired of being just a naughty-haired, snotty-nosed kid that nobody listens to and all that other stuff, right? You wanted to be somebody. You wanted to establish your being in the world. You wanted to establish a way of being in the world that will garner the recognition of others. So you decided to be this, or you decided to be that for that purpose, to overcome that anxiety, stress, suffering that came from being nothing and nobody. And when all of that stuff you repressed out in order to become this somebody gets re-emitted, guess what you become again? Right. But the difference this time, it ain't no anxiety. You through with that. Now you're ready to grow because you become strong enough as an ego to handle being a nobody. Now we can go to the next level. See the beauty of it? You got to be strong to be nobody. Right? That's adult work. You know what I mean? That's not for teenagers. That's adult work. You see, it is characteristic of an adolescent, a teenager, you see, to be into all of that posturing, exaggeration, right? For the sake of projecting a false worth and value to others, right? Adult, mature, it's all right. I am what I am. And that's good enough. And we can move on. But you got to come through that fire. You got to come through that fire. And that's what's very different here, isn't it? That's very different. I'm telling you something that very few will even have the courage to tell you because they were afraid of scaring you away. I'm telling you like it is because I'm not into collecting those people. Not interested in that at all. I'm not trying to build nothing. So I can afford to be straight up. I don't need any disciples. I'm not into that game. I tell you like it is. Hang with me. We're going through the territory of insanity. Now, do you want to hang with me? Are you up for that? I'm going to crazy land. You want to come? Because we have to pass through the land of the crazy folks to get to where we're going. That's up on the path. Walking the path, we're going to pass through there. And we're going to pass through some other places too. But this one of the places we got to pass through first to get to the good stuff. To get to the good stuff. You got to get straight with me and not make monkey business with me and not make adolescent ego business with me. Get straight. No fooling. No kidding. So I have offered those of you in the house the great considerations. The considerations regarding your way of being as an alternative to being straight. Find that out. What is your way of being as an alternative to getting straight? Find out your ego project. Look at it clearly. See it. To the point of becoming hopeless about it. And then give that energy over to the real process of self and God realization. And find the happiness and the fulfillment that you have sought in your ego project. It's not in your ego project. Yes, beloved, you have the last word.
I have done some looking at the Ego Project, and where I'm stuck is the point of realizing it's hopeless. Intellectually, I can see that it's a failure, but I can't get to that point of hopelessness about it. I'm still holding on to it emotionally,
Yes, I understand.
and I don't know how to get beyond that.
You have to you keep looking, keep looking. Because it requires a very profound samyama. You see, samyama itself is a kind of yoga. We talked about that. You really can't do profound samyama until you're able to really concentrate. I think when we're doing the workshops on Patanjali, I don't know, is it on video? We have it somewhere. On the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And talked about the limbs of yoga. And of those limbs of yoga, there are three in particular that relates to samyama. Dharana, concentration. Dhyana, which is the technical name for the uninterrupted holding and flow of concentration. And samadhi. All right? Samadhi means merger. Samyama, like samadhi, can only happen truly once you have been able to
put your attention on it, beloved, to the point of no interruption, to the point of absorption, and then you will feel it. Right? So you just keep going. You see, you're doing very good about it. And you have to overcome a lot of the stuff that has been repressed out, because remember, right, the ego don't want to feel that its project is hopeless. So it's, you know what I mean? So there's going to be a mighty struggle here, right? And you have to really hang in there. But eventually, you see, you will get it. The trick, beloved, is to get it before you die. You're going to get it. I mean, it's not like you won't get it. The question is, let's get it now rather than wait until you get your bad news. But sometimes a little bad news helps. You see.
I can see myself going all the way to my deathbed in the state that I'm in right now, not really feeling that it's absolutely hopeless.
No, you can't. That's Kunda buffer. You can't feel the hopelessness because the ego could not function if it could feel the hopelessness. Are you following me? That's the function of the mechanism of repression. The ego cannot let you feel like that. Its game is over. Right? The grace of God must happen.
Grace is required. And by grace, you see, something that will happen where you can feel it. But that's something that will happen in order for you to feel it. You're not going to like it at all. You see? I mean, you're not going to like it at all. And it will destabilize you. It will shake you up. In fact, usually it terrifies you. Terror is the best word I can come up with to describe what the impact of this stuff feels like when it hits into the territory of the ego domain. It is terror. You're going to fight. Yeah, you're going to fight. You're not going to have any choice. But as that terror, because the terror takes over you. You're going to fight, but you're going to lose it. That's my point. Or you're going to fight like hell, beloveds, but you're going to lose the battle. Right. You're going to fight like hell, but you're going to lose. Once the Holy Spirit begins to resurrect in the body-mind, the ego is doomed sooner or later. Spirit resurrected in the body-mind always throws the body-mind into trauma. Those of you who are familiar with the Christian tradition, the mystical aspect of the Christian tradition at least, have read the Confessions of St. John of the Cross or St. Teresa Avila and so forth and so on, Giordano in Italy. I mean, the history is replete with the confessions of the mystic seers and sages that have come out of the great Christian tradition. And they talk about, in great detail, in fact, about the experience that the individual undergoes when the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost, as those who are not sophisticated refer to it, but when the Holy Spirit begins to resurrect in the body mind, it is terrifying. You have the same experience that a person in stage 2 schizophrenia have. I mean, voices and all. It's a trip, right? Terror, sheer terror. What you felt, Kumsa, that you confessed on the film, that was terror, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Right? Terrifying, right? Wasn't just scary, was it? It was way beyond scary. You know, scary is like somebody said, boo, right? This wasn't like somebody said, boo, right? Like somebody said, boom! Terror! So, beloved, when it comes, it will come in the form of terror. The Holy Spirit rumbles and it first feels like terror because it is terrifying for the ego. It is not pleasant. It is not that kind of Hollywood version of enlightenment with flowers and bells and lights and, you know, none of that stuff that you've been hoping enlightenment is. Terrifying. And as the body-mind gets purified, adapted to, right? Made more capable of holding more spirit. As the spirit keeps cruising in you. Remember, that spirit comes like death. Remember I said about death? When death starts happening to you, do it stop? Don't it keep coming? When you enter into that terminal phase of your life, you get angry, do death stop? The process keeps right on rolling, doesn't it? When spirit begins to resurrect in your body, mind, it's just like that. It does not stop. You'd be better if you were dead. No, if you was in a retreat, if you was in the company somewhere so that you don't run off somewhere and hurt yourself. You see? Because it's like that. And it keeps rolling and rolling. But unlike death, as it rolls further, it becomes more blissful. That's the difference. If your death moves forward, it becomes more painful. Just the reverse. Terror, at some point in the resurrection of spirit and body mind, transforms into awe. You see? You're full of awe about it. And so forth and so on. And I've offered you up in the workshop all kinds of illustrations of what happens at the turning point. In fact, Anaraji, you started us off in that part of the discussion about the reversal of your position to the restoration of spirit. You no longer, at some point, resist it because it's no longer terrifying for you. Instead, now you start resisting your contraction. You start resisting being the ego. That's the thing that gets reversed. Just the opposite of what you're doing now, right? You're resisting spirit, trying to remain who you are. It gets reversed when spirit really starts moving in you. You resist being who you are so that you can be taken over, so the body-mind can be taken over. The body-mind belongs to God, not you. You have co-opted it. This you that is co-opted is a figment. It's not even real. It's a mental construct. You understand? It's not even real. And it's not running anything. And this is what you get to see when God is back in the house. The experience you start having is that you're not running any of your body-mind because the senses now are co-opted. Boom. And you will hear what God wants you to hear. You can't cover your ears up to keep it out. And your ego don't know how to handle that because the ego says, I don't hear this, I'm tired of hearing this shit. And then God keeps rolling in this body-mind, coming back, claiming it. It's my body-mind. And when it gets made even more right and pure, then God incarnates it. He mounts it full. And then there is no more you. You has ended. You was simply a device that God created to get his body-mind ready for. And when the body-mind is ready for him, then God gets rid of you, mounts the body-mind, rides it in his creation to his delight. Do you understand what I'm talking about? That's right. That's right. When he finally fills it up, that's what he talks about. Do you like that? Say it again, Raji. When he finally descends fully, Raji up here, if you can't hear him, Raji said that when he fills it up, when the incarnation is full, then God announces, Anukasa. Ahumbromasi. I am God here now. I'm here. Back in my body and mind. In the house. that God built for himself. All right. With that, I would like to have Trata Saab and Patricia G come forward, please. Somebody would move. Well, put it just a little bit so that Bilal can set his cameras up, right? I think you need them right here. You want to set them? You set it back a little bit more. Hers a little bit more. Oh, you both look so beautiful.
I believe each and everyone in the room here have already understood what this is all about, the big naming ceremony, so I won't have to go into any explanation about it. Each of you have set in on other people's big naming ceremonies. And I have felt in you that urge for a big name of your own. And you're right about it. Everybody should have a big name of your own. And I have waited as long as I can. Even I have a limited patience. Because the very first time that urge arose in me, I almost leaped out of my seat to run to you at your big name, so you can imagine how difficult it has been for me to wait the process out. And on this day, I just couldn't wait no longer, so you all will forgive me if I rushed up. And I will start with you, beloved, because of the two of you, our relationship has the most history. Not less or more intimate, but simply more history. And you and I met on the battlefield in the schools, you see. And even then, I noticed there was something different about you. At first I thought it was Zen, because you had that damn stick in the can, scaring those kids to death. But I like that. You got my attention also that day, besides the students. And when I looked at you in response to your Zen technique in the classroom, then I saw why I was at that school that day. And beloved, it was love at first sight, you see. I simply liked the one. There's a certain quality about Patricia G that you can't see from a distance. You have to get up close to her, a little bit into her life to see. You will see that she has a certain kind of gift at making things pretty. One of the most beautiful funerals that I attended was her mother's funeral that she made beautiful. And in her homework on death and dying, she outlined for me her own funeral, which will be no less beautiful. She can make pretty. She has that city, she has that quality, that is her essence. She is creative. And of all the things in her life that she has created that was so beautiful, and I mean it is really beautiful, you have not seen Christmas until you see how she makes it look. It is really beautiful. And out of all the beauty that she has created, she was not able to create any beauty for herself. It was almost like a curse was on her. And today, we are here to lift the curse off of you. So that your abilities and talents to create so much beauty and joy for others now comes home and become operating in your life, so that you may make your life as beautiful as you have made the lives of so many others. I know something about the woman. I know her children. I know her husband. And she has made their life beautiful. Absolutely. And in the process, made hers hell. The kind of beauty she had been making always cost her. In some instances, her own happiness. But she was down for it. Because that's the kind of woman she is. And I recognize that. And I wish to name it so that you may recognize it too. And be reminded that that quality that was planted in you, beloved, that seed that God deposited in you, it's time to grow. It is time for it to prepare itself in that body mind of yours for the arrival of the owner. Pat Cheeks has done a good job, but she's dismissed now. And to make room for the real creator, I give you the name Paravaki. Paravaki means creative. Consciousness becomes the goal. You have been created at the level of your imagination. The creativity moves up now. Creative consciousness, which is a very different mode of operation. You will create more than beauty because you will move higher now in yourself. You will create happiness like you used to create Christmas decorations. You will create love in the experience of being loved. Like you created flower arrangements. It will become more than something pretty, beloved. It will become that which makes a person's life worth living. Much can be said, Dr. Saab. But no matter what is said, it would not necessarily be enough to express the joy that I had laying my eyes on you. I didn't think I would meet another person like you in the course of a lifetime. How lucky can a man like me be? For all of my life, I have had this man. And when you came along, I had to look around. You felt like Bilal. I had to rub my eyes. I had to do a double take. I could see you were a little taller and all of that, but I couldn't make any distinction between the spirits. Two Bilals? Can you understand, beloved? What happened to me? Felt in you the same down with you power that has only been in this man. All the way down. Willing to do that which it takes to make the vision come true. I was so overwhelmed to meet a second Bilal. I could hardly wait. I came to you over your house. I couldn't wait for you to come to satsang. I brought satsang to you. Didn't I, beloved? Yes. I had to make sure that it wasn't a dream. That the world will have another Bilal when this one's gone. I was glad about it. Because I felt existing in you the same kind of sincerity that exists in him. You duplicate Bilal's sincerity, and there's no bullshit, and down for it all the way. No fooling, no kidding, no complaining, no bitching, no moaning. Getting the job done in the background. No need of applause, no need of recognition, no need of praise. Happy to be of service. There have always been men like you and Bilal, beloved, in every time and in every place and in every spiritual environment. During the time of the prophet, peace be upon him, they were called Ansars. If you're not familiar with the great tradition of Ansars, talk to Bharatiji about it. It'll make you really appreciate this name that I'm giving you. The Ansars, down for the Prophet. Without the Ansars, there would be no Islam. The Ansars, those were the ones ready to die for Islam. They were not a part of the talking school of Islam that exists today. They were the Ansars of the Prophet. And I make you an Ansar of the house. And more than that, beloved. even amongst the Ansars, there was those who was even more extraordinary in their role played in the rise and success of Islam. There was the Kutaba, those who were entrusted with the welfare of the Ansars community. And those of you who have been around this man, you see him standing in parking lots with his hand folded quietly to the side somewhere until he know you say, making sure ain't nothing happening to you. If you were at somebody's workshop, you might have been too carried away from the good time we had to have noticed him out there in the parking lot to your car. He is doing what a Kutaba is supposed to do. Look out for the welfare of a spiritual seeker. Beloved, you are Ansar Kutabaji or Afrika for the rest of your life and even beyond. Not finished yet, but we're going to leave it after the Miti Seva and Prachad. I would like for those in the Gurumukh Samiti to follow Janamaji somewhere outside to reassemble so that we may not leave this place today without taking Kiva with us. I'm not going nowhere without Kiva. So you gonna let me have my Kiva? You will join me and bring her home today. And those of you who are not yet a part of the Gurumukh Samiti, but is a part of my heart here in the house, would you please see to it that food is served to our guests in our absence. We won't be long, but we have to take care of Kiva. Before we leave this place. With that said, let us have those in need of prashad from around coming. Let us move the chairs back so that people can come for their prashad. Not replacing.
Guess I can die now. My replacement is here.
Excuse me.
All right. Well, everybody congratulate you like that. Not good. So man, what you over getting hugs for? I don't know. They congratulate me. Oh, I didn't know which one of y'all was. I always carry on. I said, oh, look at them. They ain't got no tissue, boy. Oh, man. I can't go. I ran out of film. Everything.
You got a tissue all.
Yeah, I got one.